You're lucky we even invited you, my sister hissed, half smiling as if her words weren't knives. I stood there clutching the strap of my worn-out purse, pretending it didn't hurt, but it did. It always did with her. My name is Julia Harper. I'm 38, divorced, and work in data security, though no one in my family really knows what that means. Or cares. To them, I'm just the awkward one. The one who never quite fit their polished mold of success. Not like my sister Camille. Camille, the golden child. She's the kind of woman who doesn't walk into a room, she arrives. Hair always perfect, heels clicking like applause. CEO of her own marketing firm by 32. Married a man with a jawline you could hang coats on. Two perfect children, and somehow always a fresh blowout. Me? I rent a small apartment, wear off-brand cardigans, and drink way too much gas station coffee. But I'm content, or at least I was. Until Camille's words shattered that illusion. It started when she invited me, last minute, to the annual Harper Family Business Gala, a black tie event hosted in one of the most expensive hotels in the city, attended by our parents, their investors, and basically everyone who once looked me in the eye and said, "Still freelancing, huh?" When I opened the invitation email, my first instinct was to decline. But something tugged at me. A stubborn flicker. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't invisible. Or maybe I just missed feeling like part of a family. I spent the last of my savings on a rental dress and heels that blistered my feet 5 minutes in. The Uber ride there was quiet. Me rehearsing polite smiles in the rearview mirror, bracing myself for that familiar cocktail of pity and patronizing chuckles. And sure enough, the moment I stepped into the ballroom, I knew I didn't belong. The room glittered, men in tuxedos, women in gowns that probably cost more than my rent. Champagne flutes tilted toward lips that curled in barely concealed surprise at the sight of me. Camille was across the room, surrounded by her usual admirers. She spotted me instantly. Her eyes scanned me head to toe, then smiled that tight pageant grin. As I approached, she leaned in and whispered, "You're lucky we even invited you." She didn't say it out of cruelty, not exactly. No, Camille's venom was elegant. She knew how to lace her words with just enough sugar to make them seem almost harmless. But they weren't. Not to me. She introduced me to her circle as my sister who's into tech stuff, right? Then turned back to them, laughing about the newest venture her company just launched, some big digital rebranding campaign. I nodded along, sipping water while they spoke a language of mergers and metrics. I could have told them their online infrastructure was vulnerable, that their data pipeline was open as a freeway. But no one asked. No one cared what the invisible Harper sister had to say. At one point, Dad came over. His hug was brief, distracted. He told me I looked healthy, which in Harper code meant you've gained weight. He said Camille's firm just landed a massive new client. "Isn't she incredible?" He beamed. I smiled and nodded, pretending my chest wasn't tightening. Dinner came. I sat at the far end of the table between two interns who barely looked up from their phones. Camille stood to give a speech. Charismatic, polished, a natural. She didn't mention me, not once, not even as family. But I clapped anyway. After dessert, I slipped out early. No one noticed, not even Camille. As I stood outside, the cold air biting my skin, I stared up at the glowing hotel sign and whispered, I should have stayed home. But fate had other plans, because the very next morning I got a call from an old friend, now head of cybersecurity for a Fortune 500 company. He'd seen something disturbing, a breach, through one of Camille's affiliate partners. And just like that, my night of humiliation flipped into the beginning of something else entirely. The call came just after 7 a.m. "Jules, it's Eric. I need your eyes on something." Eric and I worked together years ago during a contract with a cybersecurity firm in D.C. He was one of the few people who never looked at me like I was just Camille's sister. He respected my instincts and trusted my gut. He sent over the files, a strange spike in activity on a network connected to Nova Lux, the same luxury skincare brand Camille's firm had just signed on to rebrand. The breach hadn't gone public yet, but it was real. Someone was siphoning sensitive client and investor data, payment info, internal financials, even marketing timelines. And the entry point? A faulty endpoint Camille's team had insisted was safe enough to launch early for a sneak peek campaign. I stared at the code and felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just a technical hiccup, it was negligence. If this got out, Camille's firm could be sued, blacklisted, maybe even shut down. Eric's voice was tight. I thought maybe you'd want a heads up. I wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted to laugh and say, serves them right for treating me like a coat rack. But instead, I felt sick. Camille was my sister. Our history was rocky, sure, but watching her crash and burn like this, it didn't feel right. And then something else kicked in. That old part of me that used to fix broken things, that used to chase the thrill of solving what no one else could. I opened my laptop and dove in, fingers flying over keys like I was back in my prime. Within an hour, I traced the breach to a third-party plugin Camille's team had rushed into production. A lazy security patch had left a door wide open, the kind of mistake no one with proper oversight would have allowed. I documented everything, built a fix, then hesitated. Would she even believe me? After all, I was just the sister she luckily invited, the ghost in the family photo. Still, I sent the email. I didn't sugarcoat it. Camille, you have a breach linked to the Nova Lux preview campaign. It's bad. I've attached the logs and a temporary patch that should hold until your devs can build a proper fix. I don't expect a thank you, just don't ignore it. Julia. No response, not a word. I told myself I'd done my part and that was enough. But that night, the story broke. The news outlets ran it as a whisper first. Luxury skincare giant potentially compromised in data leak. No names yet, no confirmation, but I knew it was only a matter of time. I barely slept. By morning, Camille's firm was trending for all the wrong reasons. I turned on the TV, coffee trembling in my hand, and there it was. The footage of Camille, leaving her office surrounded by reporters. Her voice cracked as she said, "No comment at this time." And then, on the ticker beneath her, insider cybersecurity expert prevents full-scale data breach. They didn't name me yet, but they would, because Eric, bless him, had quietly handed over my report to Novalux's legal team, and someone in their PR department knew a lifeline when they saw one. An hour later, my phone lit up with a new email from Novalux's CEO. "We'd like to thank you publicly. Would you be willing to speak to the press?" I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to hide, to shrink back like always, but another part, the one that had sat in that ballroom invisible, stood up inside me and whispered, "Let them see you now." I agreed to a short interview, nothing flashy, just the facts. I told the truth, explained what I found, how I found it, and what needed to change. I didn't mention Camille by name, but I didn't need to. By evening, every news site had the headline, "Independent security analyst prevents catastrophic leak in major marketing firm's client rollout." And Camille? Camille called. Her voice was quiet, cracked. "Julia, I didn't know. I didn't know it was you." But she did. She just never expected me to matter. Not until now. I held the phone in silence, letting Camille's voice hang in the air between us. She cleared her throat. "Can we talk? In person?" The last time Camille asked to meet me face to face, I was 17 and she wanted to borrow a dress for homecoming because I'd bought one before she had the chance. She never gave it back, but something about the tremble in her voice kept me from saying no. "Fine," I said. "Name the place." She chose a cafe downtown. Not too public, but not private either. Neutral ground. I showed up 5 minutes early, out of habit, not eagerness, and sat at a corner table facing the door. I wore a simple black blouse and jeans. No makeup. I didn't need armor. Not today. Camille walked in with sunglasses, a low bun, and a trench coat like she was dodging paparazzi. Honestly, she probably was. Her firm's PR crisis was just beginning. She slid into the seat across from me and looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You really did it," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I sipped my coffee. "You mean saved your company from public disgrace?" "Yeah, I did." Her lips twitched, almost into a smile, then faded. "Why?" The question hit me harder than it should have. Why? Why help the sister who humiliated me? Why save a business that treated me like a nobody? I could have told her it was because I'm a good person, or that I didn't want her kids to suffer, but the truth was messier. Because I knew what it would feel like to watch everything you've worked for get torn apart, I said. And because, even after everything, I don't want to see you fail. She looked down at her hands. For the first time in our lives, Camille looked small. Not glamorous, not perfect, just real. You've always been better at this stuff, she admitted. Dad used to say you had a mind like a trap. I didn't believe him. I thought he just felt guilty for never really seeing you. That stung. He didn't, I said flatly. None of you did. She flinched, and I felt the briefest flicker of guilt, but I let it sit. She needed to feel it. Julia, I'm sorry, she whispered. About the gala, about what I said. I wasn't thinking. You were being yourself. I cut in. That's the problem. We sat in silence for a while. I could see the weight of the situation pressing on her. She looked like someone who'd finally realized the pedestal she'd been standing on was hollow. Then she said something I didn't expect. We want to hire you. I blinked. We? The board, she clarified. Novolux included. They saw your report. They want someone to come in, audit all our systems, build safeguards. They want you, not someone like you. You. I stared at her, trying to gauge the sincerity in her face. Was this genuine? Or just desperation in designer heels? You spent most of my life pretending I wasn't smart enough to be at your table, I said, and now you want me to save the meal. Camille's shoulders sank. I deserve that, but this isn't a favor. It's an offer. A 6-month contract. Consultant-level compensation, full control. My chest tightened. It was the kind of opportunity I used to dream about, but it wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about what it meant, about being seen. I'll think about it, I said finally. She nodded. That's fair. As we stood up to leave, she touched my arm. You really were the smartest one all along, you know. I didn't reply, because knowing it myself mattered more than hearing it from her. But later that night, when I got home, I opened the contract offer attached to the follow-up email. The numbers made me sit down, and so did the last line of Camille's message. I hope this is the beginning of something different between us, but even if it's not, I'm grateful, truly. For the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe I wasn't just the shadow of someone else's spotlight. Maybe I had my own. I didn't reply to Camille that night. I closed the laptop, turned off my phone, and just sat. Still. For the first time in what felt like years, I let the silence wrap around me like a familiar sweater. I thought about everything, about the years I spent trying to make my family see me, not just as the sister who works with computers, or the one who never settled down, but as a full person, whole, capable, valuable. They never did. Camille was always the front runner. She won the spelling bees, wore the crown at prom, graduated summa cum laude with a major everyone understood. Marketing. People nodded when she spoke. They didn't ask her to explain things twice. They didn't mock her for being too technical, too intense, too boring. That was me. I remembered a Christmas party years ago when I was still working as a junior analyst. I had just helped shut down a multi-million-dollar fishing operation. But when I tried to talk about it over dinner, Dad laughed and said, "Okay, enough of Julia's spy stories. Let Camille tell us about her new TV ad." And they all leaned in, smiling, hanging on to her every word. Like she was gold and I was rust. I had smiled too. But that night, I cried in the bathroom, quietly so no one would hear. Those memories weren't just echoes, they were scars. I paced my apartment, replaying her offer in my head. The money was more than I'd ever made. The autonomy was real, and the recognition, that part was tempting, almost dangerously so. But something deeper tugged at me. A question. Was this about redemption or revenge? Did I want to take this job because I believed in what I could do, or because I wanted to stand in Camille's office, look her in the eye, and say, "You needed me"? I didn't sleep much. By morning, the media cycle had exploded. Camille's firm was now officially tied to the Novolux breach, but they were spinning it as an avoidable scare resolved by a third-party expert. My name was in 3 headlines. One news outlet called me the cyber sleuth who outsmarted corporate chaos. That one made me laugh. Then my mother called. Julia, she said, her voice clipped. Why didn't you tell us you were involved in this? I swallowed. Because you wouldn't have cared. She went quiet for a moment. That's not true. It is, I said. You always thought Camille would save the family name. You never imagined it might be me. Camille's hurting, she said sharply. She's under scrutiny. The investors are nervous. I let out a dry laugh. And here I thought you called to say congratulations. Mom sighed. Don't be dramatic. I'm just trying to understand what happens next. What happened next? That was the real question, wasn't it? I hung up without answering. That afternoon, I called Eric, told him about the offer. He whistled low through the line. You gonna take it? I don't know, I said. It feels complicated. Julia, you just caught a fire they didn't even smell yet. You think too much about who claps for you. Start thinking about what you can build with your own hands. His words echoed in my mind all evening. I opened the contract again, read it line by line, no fine print, no traps, just an acknowledgement of my value. I grabbed a pen, signed it, scanned, sent. 30 minutes later, Camille replied, "Welcome aboard, we start Monday. And Julia, thank you again." I won't forget this, but that wasn't the moment that stuck with me. It came the next morning, when I walked into the office building that once belonged to the family that overlooked me, badge in hand, head held high, and was greeted by the receptionist with 4 words I never thought I'd hear. "Ms. Harper, right this way." The doors parted with a soft whoosh as I stepped into the glass-paneled lobby of Harper & Crane Media. Everything gleamed: marble floors, chrome accents, towering wall screens with rotating campaign visuals. Camille's empire. The receptionist, young, stylish, probably fresh out of a PR degree, stood as I approached. "Ms. Harper," she said with a smile, "they're waiting for you in the 10th floor conference room. Elevators to your left." She didn't flinch when she said my name. No awkward pause, no tilt of the head like she expected someone else. For the first time, I wasn't Camille's sister. I was Ms. Harper, the expert. It felt strange, and good. The ride up was silent. Just me, my thoughts, and the soft buzz of elevator mechanics. When the doors opened, I was met by Camille's assistant, a man in his late 20s with a pressed shirt, nervous smile, and tablet in hand. "Hi, Julia. Miss Harper, I've prepared a temporary workstation in the east corner for now, but Camille wanted to talk to you privately first." He gestured toward the glass-walled office at the end of the hall. Her office. I thanked him and walked the familiar carpeted path. I'd been here before, once, years ago, when Camille launched the firm and invited us all for a tour. Back then, she'd shown off the sleek space like it was a museum exhibit. Back then, I'd stayed silent, standing behind my mother, nodding at things I didn't understand. Now I understood all of it, and more. Camille looked up from her desk as I knocked lightly on the doorframe. "Come in." She stood, slightly too quickly, and gestured to the seat across from her. "I wasn't sure if you'd actually show." "I signed the contract," I said. "I don't do that lightly." Her lips tightened, but she nodded. "Right, of course. Look, I wanted to say, again, thank you. Things got out of control fast. Nova Lux's legal team is breathing down our necks, and the board's been in damage control mode all weekend." I waited, letting the silence hang. Camille leaned back in her chair. "They want you to lead the security restructuring across all our client platforms. Audit everything. Build a new standard. We're bringing in 2 devs to support you, but the lead, it's yours." I raised an eyebrow. "All of it." "All of it," she confirmed. "Full autonomy. I've already sent out the internal memo. You'll report directly to the board, not to me." That caught me off guard. "Not to you." She looked down, folding her hands. "It's what they wanted. And honestly, it's what's best. You're better at this than anyone we've got. It would be stupid to try and control that." I studied her. The Camille I grew up with would have never said that, would have fought to keep her hands on every wire. But this version, she looked tired, humbled, maybe even scared. She gestured to a folder on her desk. "Your credentials, office keycard, direct access to the back-end servers, it's all in there." I took it without a word. "And Julia," she said, softer now, "I know we're not close, And I've done a lot of things, said a lot of things that I regret, but I want to try if you'll let me. It wasn't a dramatic apology. It wasn't even particularly warm, but it was honest, or as honest as Camille could get, and in that moment, it was enough. I nodded. Let's see how it goes. My temporary desk was nothing special, just a corner workstation near the IT pods. But the moment I logged in and saw the admin dashboard, everything changed. All the chaos, all the fire Camille's firm had ignored for years, it was there. A mess of outdated firewalls, unpatched vulnerabilities, and lazy third-party integrations. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. By midday, I'd already flagged 6 critical risks, blocked 3 potential leaks, and rewrote a chunk of outdated code someone had clearly copied from an open-source template. At 3:15, my phone buzzed. A text from Camille. "Come to the main boardroom. You're about to be introduced." I didn't hesitate. When I walked in, I found 12 people seated, investors, executives, a few from Nova Lux. Camille stood at the front, sleek and confident again, but her tone was measured. "This is Julia Harper," she said. "She's the reason our firm still has a future. She's our new lead cybersecurity strategist. She doesn't need applause. She needs your cooperation." And for once, no one questioned it. One of the investors, a man who had laughed at me at last year's gala when I mentioned AI-driven breach detection, stood and shook my hand. "We're lucky to have you." I wanted to say, "No, you're lucky I didn't stay home," but I didn't. I just smiled and said, "Let's get to work." The days that followed moved fast. I wasn't used to being at the center of anything, let alone the center of a company scrambling to repair its digital backbone. But there I was, fielding calls, leading security audits, rewriting protocols, training their in-house team to stop thinking like marketers and start thinking like defenders. They didn't push back, not once. Every time I walked into a meeting room, they listened. Every time I gave feedback, they adjusted. It wasn't because I was Camille's sister. It was because I had proven myself without needing to step on a single stage. That part felt good. But underneath it all, I couldn't ignore the tension in Camille. She hovered on the edge of every interaction, cordial, careful, but never fully relaxed. And I understood why. I was doing what she couldn't, not because she wasn't smart, but because she had built her empire on polish, on surface-level perfection. I was digging beneath all that, and it scared her. One afternoon, as I worked late in the server room, I uncovered something strange, a hidden data repository linked to a client campaign that didn't match the others. I pinged the database. The encryption was amateur at best. And what I found inside wasn't just old campaign data or leads, it was raw client footage, unedited interviews, unapproved ad drafts, private notes on customers and influencers, things that should have been deleted or never saved at all, and all of it traced back to Camille's personal server. My stomach turned. Keeping data like this wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. She must have known, she had to. This wasn't the kind of mistake someone made accidentally. This was strategy, leverage, a hidden archive in case deals went south or someone needed incentivizing to play nice. I sat back, stunned. This wasn't about fixing a few bugs anymore. This was rot. Deeper than I thought. I had a choice. I could delete it quietly, pretend I never saw it, protect the Harper name for what it was worth. Or I copied the files, encrypted them, stored them safely, then documented the breach in the audit report I was sending to the board in 2 days. If I let this slide, I'd be complicit, and I'd spent too many years being invisible to now become corrupt. That night, Camille called. "Hey, everything okay?" Her voice was a little too bright. "I need to talk to you in person," I said. She paused. "Now?" "Tomorrow morning before I send the audit to the board." Her silence was loud. We met in her office just after 8 a.m. Camille looked guarded. She wore one of her power suits, hair in a sleek bun, eyes unreadable. I didn't waste time. "I found the archive," I said. "The one on your private server." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. "Do you know what that looks like?" I asked. "What it is?" She folded her arms. "I was protecting the company. Clients flake, lie, steal ideas. That archive kept us safe." "By hoarding private data without permission?" I snapped. You crossed a line, Camille, a legal one. You could take the whole firm down. For a moment, I thought she'd argue, fight me. But then her face changed. You're going to report it, she said quietly. Yes. Camille looked out the window for a long time. You always said I only cared about appearances. Maybe you were right. I didn't speak. She wasn't done. I built this company from nothing, she said. No one thought I could, not even Dad. I had to be perfect, strategic, ruthless. If I blinked, I lost. And now? I asked. Now I'm blinking. She turned to face me. Do what you have to do. If this is where it ends, then fine. I was stunned, not because she admitted it, but because she sounded relieved. I nodded. I'm sending the report at noon. Camille nodded too. Thank you for not doing it behind my back. I figured you deserved at least that. As I walked out of her office, I realized something strange. I didn't hate her. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want an apology anymore. I just wanted peace, and maybe, just maybe, respect. By 12:01 p.m., the report was in every board member's inbox. By 12:07, Camille's phone started ringing, and by 12:30, an emergency meeting was called. Things were about to change for everyone. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 1:15 p.m. sharp. The email came through with no subject line, just a time, a room, and the instruction: mandatory attendance. No exceptions. When I entered, the air was already thick with unease. Everyone was there: executives, client liaisons, Camille, and even a silent Novolux rep seated at the far end of the table. Camille didn't look at me as I took my seat beside the board chair. No one said anything at first. Then Arthur Kane, the chairman of the board, cleared his throat. He was an older man, stern but fair, the kind of guy who didn't waste breath unless he had to. Ms. Harper, he said, eyes fixed on me, your findings have been, she is illuminating. He gestured to the report printout in front of him. It was thick. Each page outlined vulnerabilities, lapses, and most damning of all, the hidden archive Camille had been maintaining. She admitted to it, I said, voice even. Didn't dispute the authenticity, but the fact remains, it's a liability, both legally and ethically. And unless it's disclosed and properly handled, this entire firm could face a class action lawsuit. Murmurs rippled across the table. One of the investors, a sharp-featured woman named Lisa Vaughn, leaned forward. How long has this been going on? Camille finally spoke. About 18 months. I kept it isolated. It was never accessed by unauthorized parties. Except you weren't authorized either, I said softly. You stored private, unapproved data on a non-compliant server. It doesn't matter if it was ever accessed. Lisa turned toward the board chair. We'll be required to self-report this to clients, maybe even issue a statement. We will, Arthur said, but first, we need to decide how to move forward internally. He turned toward Camille. Ms. Harper, Camille, given the severity of the issue and the breach of compliance, the board recommends you step down as acting CEO, effective immediately. The room went silent. Camille didn't flinch. Her hands were clasped, knuckles white, but her voice was level when she replied. I understand. Just like that, no protests, no excuses, just a quiet resignation. Lisa spoke again. We need to appoint an interim. I felt the weight of a dozen eyes turning to me. Number surely not. Arthur cleared his throat again. Ms. Julia Harper has demonstrated integrity, expertise, and leadership during a critical moment in this company's history. If she's willing, I'd like to nominate her as interim CTO, Chief Technology Officer, for the next 90 days, with the option to extend based on board vote. It wasn't CEO, but it was still the highest-ranking position in the tech hierarchy, a seat at the real table. Camille didn't even blink. She just nodded slowly, eyes fixed ahead. I was stunned. I swallowed. If you believe I can serve the company well, then yes. I accept. Arthur smiled faintly. Then it settled. They moved on quickly. Legal teams, timelines, damage control plans. Camille stayed seated the whole time, quiet, composed, fading into the background for the first time in her life. When the meeting ended, people filtered out quickly. No one said much. Too much had just shifted under their feet. As I gathered my things, Camille stood beside me. "So, that's it," she said quietly. "I'm out." "You're not out," I replied. "You're just not in charge anymore." She gave a small laugh. "You think that's better?" I looked at her, really looked. The mask had cracked, and beneath it was the sister I used to share late-night cereal with, who used to braid my hair before school, before everything got competitive. "You were good at what you built," I said, "but you started building it on control instead of trust. That's what brought it down." She met my eyes. "And what are you going to build it on?" "Truth," I said, "and no more pretending that being invisible makes someone powerless." She exhaled slowly. "You're not invisible anymore, Julia." It wasn't an apology, but it was as close as she could come. We parted without hugging, without fanfare, just a nod. As I stepped back into the hallway, phone buzzing with new notifications, employees giving me cautious glances, I realized something that made me pause. I hadn't taken her power. I'd stepped into my own. I didn't sleep the night after the meeting, not because I was nervous, but because I wasn't. For once, I wasn't bracing for someone to humiliate me, dismiss me, or steal the credit. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next morning, I woke up to a storm of notifications, emails, LinkedIn messages, news alerts, calls from names I hadn't heard in years. The media had gotten wind of the transition, though none of the outlets had the full story. Just enough to raise eyebrows. Cybersecurity expert Julia Harper appointed interim CTO after internal review at Harper & Crane. I clicked one of the articles. There I was, my name, my photo, my words from the interview I'd given just days ago. But this time, the caption didn't read Camille Harper's sister. It read, "The woman who saved the firm from collapse." I sat back, stunned, not out of disbelief, but relief. It was real now. No one could take it away. Later that day, I hosted my first all-staff meeting. I stood at the head of the main conference room, facing nearly 50 employees, designers, marketers, IT staff, junior analysts. Some of them looked uncertain, others curious, and a few visibly relieved. "I won't waste your time with a long speech," I began. "You all know what happened. You know what's broken. But here's what you need to know now. We're not here to cover mistakes. We're here to fix them. Together." A quiet hush settled over the room. A few people nodded. One even clapped. I continued. "From today forward, we build on transparency. No more data shortcuts, no more risky quick wins. If we earn trust, it'll be because we deserve it." The room felt different when I left it. Not louder, not busier, but grounded, ready. Later that afternoon, I stepped into Camille's now vacated office to grab a few archived files. Her scent still lingered, expensive perfume, citrus, and something sharp. But the walls felt less imposing now. On the desk, I found a small envelope with my name written on the front. Her handwriting, inside was a single folded note. "Julia, you were never lucky to be invited. We were lucky you came." See, it wasn't forgiveness or closure, but it was something. That weekend, I visited our parents. They hadn't called since the news broke. Not a congratulations, not a question. But I decided to show up anyway, to look them in the eyes and speak, not as the forgotten daughter, not as Camille's shadow, but as myself. Mom opened the door, startled. "Julia? I thought you might want to hear it from me," I said, holding up a copy of the press release. "It's not gossip. It's real." Dad came to the door next, adjusting his glasses. He read the headline, twice, then looked at me like he was seeing someone brand new. "You're CTO now?" he asked slowly. I nodded. "Yes." He swallowed hard. That's big." "I know." There was a long silence. Mom finally stepped back. "Come in, sweetheart. We were just making coffee." I didn't expect them to change overnight, but for once, I wasn't chasing their approval. I wasn't aching to hear, "We're proud of you." I didn't need it, because I was proud of myself. 2 weeks later, I walked into the same hotel ballroom where Camille had humiliated me. But this time, I wasn't in the back row. I was the keynote speaker. The theme of the evening was digital transformation, and when I stepped onto that stage, heels steady, voice strong, something in the air shifted, a kind of hush, the weight of recognition. I spoke about the breach, about trust, about the cost of ignoring the quiet voices in the room. And when I closed, I said this: the next time someone tells you, you're lucky to be here, look them in the eye and say, no, you're lucky I stayed. The room went still, and then came the applause. Not polite, not hesitant, but full, rising, thunderous applause. That night, as I left the ballroom, a reporter caught up to me, notebook in hand. She asked, Julia, how does it feel to go from invisible to the face of a firm's survival? I smiled. It feels like I didn't go anywhere, I said. They just finally looked up. And with that, I walked out into the night, not as someone's sister or someone's mistake, but as someone who had rewritten her story. By her own hands, on her own terms, and in her own name, Julia Harper.